I'm Joshua Barnes and you're watching NewsX World. Let's first take a look at our top stories. A US-backed aid group in Gaza have halted distribution today as the IDF warns that nearby roads of aid centres will be considered combat zones following the death of dozens of Palestinians seeking aid. Meanwhile, the UN Security Council is set to vote on a Gaza ceasefire demand. Ukraine has denounced Russia's demands for peace as old ultimatums as the White House says US President Donald Trump is willing to sanction Russia if necessary. Meanwhile, Russia's top security official is set to speak with North Korean leader Kim Jong-un on the ongoing war. South Korea's new president Lee Jae-myung has vowed to move on from the turmoil of the martial law crisis and revive the economy after a decisive election victory. Lee has named Kim Min-seok as Prime Minister, along with a host of other top positions after winning 49.4% of the vote. The US tariff rates imposed on most imported steel and aluminium has doubled to 50% after President Trump signed an executive order confirming the move. The United Kingdom are, however, exempt from the tariff hike due to a preliminary trade deal. Taiwanese President Lai Ching-te says that the world will never forget the Tiananmen Square crackdown marking the 36th anniversary. On June the 4th, 1989, Chinese troops opened fire on a student-led protest, as Marco Rubio also praises the courage of those killed. Meanwhile, FBI Director Kash Patel has confirmed the arrest of 2 Chinese nationals for smuggling a dangerous biological pathogen into the United States. They face charges including conspiracy and visa fraud, raising national security concerns. Billionaire Elon Musk has slammed President Trump's new tax bill as a disgusting abomination, stating it will increase the federal deficit. Musk, who left his special government position last week, added on his social media platform X, "Shame on those who voted for it." The family of an Egyptian national charged with throwing gasoline bombs at a pro-Israel rally in Colorado have been arrested by immigration officials. The family of Mohammed Sabri Solomon say that he acted alone and face expedited removal from the US. We start this hour in the Middle East. The US-backed Gaza humanitarian foundation, known as the GHF, will suspend all aid distribution today as it urges the Israeli military to take greater steps in safeguarding civilians beyond the perimeter of its food distribution sites. This decision comes after dozens of Palestinians seeking aid were killed in an incident near one of its centres. The GHF stated that it has requested the Israeli military to help guide civilian foot traffic near aid locations to reduce confusion and potential escalation. An Israeli military spokesperson, however, warned civilians against moving in areas surrounding the aid distribution zones on Wednesday, labelling them combat zones. The Israeli army said it had opened fire on what it perceived as a threat near a GHF food centre. Also, the IDF has said that it is investigating the incident. Let's take a listen.
מוקדם יותר היום, כוחות צה"ל ביצעו ירי הרחקה כחצי קילומטר ממתחם החלוקה, לעבר חשודים שהתקרבו לעברם באופן שסיכן את ביטחונם, את ביטחון הלוחמים. האירוע מתוחקר וגם פה נגיע לחקר האמת. אנחנו לא מונעים הגעה של תושבי עזה למתחמי חלוקת הסיוע. ההפך הוא הנכון. אנחנו מאפשרים. חמאס הוא זה שמונע.
Meanwhile, the United Nations Security Council is set to vote on a draft resolution demanding an immediate ceasefire in Gaza, the release of hostages and large-scale unrestricted humanitarian access throughout the territory. In Washington, the White House said it is reviewing the veracity of reports that Israeli forces opened fire on civilians at an aid distribution site. Let's have a listen.
Aware of these, and I mean, what is being done to address this situation. The administration is aware of those reports, and we are currently looking into the veracity of them because, unfortunately, unlike some in the media, we don't take the word of Hamas with total truth. We like to look into it when they speak.
The GHF, which has operated in Gaza for over a week, continues to face heavy criticism from the United Nations and multiple humanitarian groups who accuse it of undermining neutrality and militarising the aid process. UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres also condemned the deaths of Palestinians seeking food as unacceptable, adding that the continuing loss of civilian life in Gaza was unthinkable. Let's have a listen to what a spokesperson for the United Nations has said.
I can tell you that once again we are witnessing unthinkable loss of life in Gaza. The Secretary General condemns the loss of lives and injuries of Palestinians seeking aid in Gaza. It is unacceptable. Civilians are risking and in several instances losing their lives just trying to get food. Palestinians have the fundamental right to adequate food and to be free from hunger. The Secretary General continues to call for an immediate and independent investigation into these events and for the perpetrators to be held to account.
Well, the war in Gaza erupted in October 2023 after Hamas attacked Israel, killing 1,200 people and taking around 250 hostages. Since then, Israel's military campaign has reportedly killed over 54,000 Palestinians, according to the Gaza health authorities. We move to Europe now, and Ukraine has criticised Russia for repeating old ultimatums during peace talks in Istanbul, saying they failed to advance efforts to end the three-year war. Foreign Minister Andrei Sybiha stated on social media that Moscow's proposals offered no progress towards a genuine peace solution or meaningful negotiations. Meanwhile, President Volodymyr Zelensky has also reshuffled military leadership following a deadly Russian missile strike on a training ground. Army Chief Mikhailo Drapetya has been relieved of organisational duties and reassigned as commander of the joint forces to focus solely on combat. Drapetya had offered to resign after the attack that killed 12 soldiers, but remains valued for his leadership. Zelensky appointed Ole Apostol to lead paratroopers, Robert Brovdy for drone forces, and named Vadim Sikorsky, deputy commander of the Eastern Army Group, to oversee command. Amid intense frontline pressure, Zelensky urged new sanctions on Russia after a deadly strike on Sumy. Meanwhile, Trump says he's willing to sanction Russia if necessary, according to the White House. Let's listen to Caroline Leavitt, White House press secretary.
So he's willing to use sanctions if he needs them in the Senate and in the Capitol Hill. Understand that the president is the commander-in-chief and he's leading United States foreign policy as he should.
Meanwhile, Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan spoke with US Secretary of State Marco Rubio about peace efforts in the Russia-Ukraine war, Gaza and Syria. They discussed outcomes of the latest Ukraine-Russia talks in Istanbul, which saw ceasefire proposals but little progress. Turkey remains a key mediator, with Fidan recently meeting with both Putin and Zelensky to push for dialogue. Heading to the Indo-Pacific now, in the latest development, South Korea's new president, Lee Jae-myung, has unveiled key appointments, naming Wee Sung-lak as National Security Advisor, Lee Jong-seok as Spy Agency Chief, Kim Mon-seok as Prime Minister, and Kang Hoon-sik as Presidential Chief of Staff. This according to his office. Meanwhile, Lee Jae-myung, who took office today, promised to heal divisions and reach out to nuclear-armed North Korea. Lee vowed to deter North Korean provocations while opening channels for dialogue and peace. He won the snap election by a wide margin over Conservative Kim Moon-soo. Lee also warned that rising global protectionism and supply chain shifts threaten South Korea's export-dependent economy. The new leader assumed command of the armed forces, urging readiness but emphasizing peace over war. Lee Jae-myung warned that rising trade protectionism and supply chain changes threaten the country's survival. Speaking at his inauguration, he referenced global trade disruptions caused by US President Donald Trump's extensive tariff policies. This is what South Korea's new president, Lee Jae-myung, had to say.
북한 GDP의 2배에 달하는 국방비, 세계 5위의 군사력, 여기에 한미 군사 동맹에 기반한 강력한 억지력으로 북핵과 북한의 군사 도발에 대응하되 북한과의 소통 창구를 열고 대화 협력을 통해 한반도 평화를 구축해 나가겠습니다. 보호주의 확대와 공급망 재편 등 급격한 국제 질서 변화는 우리의 생존 자체를 위협합니다.
Meanwhile, US Secretary of State Marco Rubio congratulated Lee, expressing hope for cooperation. He reaffirmed the strong US-ROK alliance based on the Mutual Defence Treaty, shared values and deep economic ties between the two nations. Japanese Prime Minister Shigeru Ishiba seeks to boost cooperation with Lee. Despite historical disputes, Ishiba hopes for a Japan-South Korea summit and stronger ties. He acknowledged mixed South Korean views, but emphasises open dialogue and active exchanges to deepen bilateral relations. Well, several updates following the results of the South Korean snap election. Joining us to cover those is Dr. Sanjaykumar, a journalist at the Korea Herald, who's joining us from Seoul. Dr. Kumar, thank you very much for joining us. Before we talk about the developments after this election win, let's first look at the result itself. Is this what you expected, and how has it been received by Koreans across the country?
This was already anticipated that Lee Jae-myung is likely to win, not by like huge margin, but at least minimum margin. Definitely, he is going to win. That was the political and public mood here, and now Korean people are feeling very relaxed that at least the political crisis that has been like there since last couple of months has been solved on a temporary basis. So now the other challenges remain in the center, which are the economic insecurity because of tariffs, export limitations, as well as the unemployment issues that majority of the young generation is going through. So these are the major issues that people are hoping to be sorted out soon. But on a positive note, diplomatically, the tone is changing in Korea, and especially with the Lee Jae-myung's peaceful coexistence approach with North Korea is seen as a way of pragmatic diplomacy and a diplomacy with dialogue. So people here are hopeful that once again North will be brought to dialogue. These kind of hopes are very high, but at the same time, people are expecting the new government to build new ties and like mend the ties with China, but not at the cost of U.S. alliance. So they want the Korea-U.S. alliance to be ironclad. And, you know, there were concerns in the media and the public entirely that there is a possibility that U.S. can reposition the UN army, like U.S. army here. So that concern is still there. But people are expecting Lee Jae-myung to somehow handle this relationship well, so that it should not offend US, and at the same time it should not send a signal to many like-minded countries in Europe that Korea is going towards China or becoming lenient. So of course Lee Jae-myung also knows this very well, that he will not be having this hawkish approach that the former President Yoon Suk-yeol had, and people have not chosen, especially from his party and the liberal forces have not chosen him to have such kind of hawkish approach, but to be a liberal voice. So he is very much concerned about these aspects, and I think he is going to focus now more on domestic issues as well, that he has been promising. from diplomatic perspective, of
yes,
course,
Dr. Kumar, I want to
will
look at
not
those. Apologies to interrupt. I want to look at those domestic issues and look at some of the appointments that he's made. Kim Min-seok as Prime Minister. He's also named other top officials. What do these appointments say about the route that Lee is going to take during his presidency?
Yeah, he would like to give a very clear signal that his approach would be different. He is not going to align with the approach that the former government had. It is going to be a new administration with new hopes. And you know, when hopes are high, there is risk also. So that is why he is very much considerate and very calibrated in his approach in appointing people. So you can see he's not going to make things in haste. Although, you know, like it will take a couple of days and weeks to get more people inside the cabinet and all. But yeah, some reshuffling we can see as well. But we should see it from a very liberal perspective because, you know, there is no gap in the new government. So he will have to be very calibrated. So, and he is doing so as well. And he is very carefully considering all these aspects. So,
yes.
But we need some time, you know, like appointment of Prime Minister and Spy Chief Agency is always done on an urgent basis. But we will have to see who is going to lead the Foreign Ministry, the Defense Ministry. But yeah, one thing is sure that tone is going to be liberal and in a very conversational manner, like dialogue manner, it is going to be in that way. So we have to
Dr. Kumar, sorry to interject again. I'm conscious of the amount of time that we have. There are a couple of other points that I want to discuss. Moving away from domestic politics, let's now look to international politics. You've spoken about the United States, but there might be a shift between South Korean and North Korean relations. Lee says he wants to pursue talks with North Korea. How will this be perceived by the people that have voted him into power?
The answer lies in the victory speech that he has made. Lee Jae-myung has said that his approach would be peaceful, establish peaceful coexistence with the North. This statement, this word, you know, it has a deep significance. Peaceful coexistence means that his focus will not be in confrontations or the hawkish approach that has been mentioned before, but his approach will be to engage North Korea through various dialogues and communication channels. So I think Lee Jae-myung is also going to try to somehow convince President Trump also to follow the path of dialogue, start the conversations again, and we will not be surprised to see if there are some communication channels like that working. So we should see in that way. And we should also be not surprised to see more Chinese engagement here. So
yes,
you know, like of course he has been always he has always been seen as a like pro-China kind of president, but he is not going to send such kind of signal, but he is going to engage China and under this pragmatic diplomacy. So once again, I'm trying to tell you that ironclad alliance with US, with peaceful coexistence through dialogue that he is mentioning, and under big umbrella, you can say that he is going to practice this pragmatic diplomacy that he has been advocating again and again.
Yes, absolutely. And Dr.
This
Kumar,
is how it is looking like.
Yes.
And you know, like, yeah, and
Dr. Kumar, we only have around a minute or so left, and I want to finish on tariffs, of course. The interim presidency has been holding negotiations with the US following those sweeping Liberation Day tariffs. How do we expect Lee and his administration to pick those up, given that so much work has already been done behind the scenes and with a shorter time frame than was initially there for South Korea to agree a deal?
Well, many here are seeing in a very positive way. You know, during the election campaigning, it was not seen in a positive way, but now Lee Jae-myung is reality. So people are also hopeful that, you know, during Moon Jae-in administration, Trump administration was there. So, you know, they have some communication channels, and, you know, they are going to combine it with the the former President Yoon's administration channels. Maybe he may take help of Han Duck-soo or those people who were leading the former administration, and we can see that Lee Jae-myung is trying to engage the opposition party also right now. So he is trying to send a signal that he is ready to, heal these all political, crises that happened and the polarization that he was going through, like the country was going through. So he is trying to engage the opposition party as well. And I'm sure that he is going to utilize the legacy that the Democratic Party had during the Moon Jae-in administration and the communication channel which was activated recently, most recently. So I think he's going to combine all these aspects and use it in the national interest of Korea. So
Dr.
I think
Sanjaykumar, we are unfortunately out of time, but thank you ever so much for joining us and providing insight on so many topics there. We will, of course, bring you all the updates on the new era of South Korean politics following, of course, some political chaos. But we move on now, and the US is doubling tariffs on most imported steel and aluminium starting today as part of President Trump's efforts to pressure trading partners to present better trade offers. This escalation follows Trump's executive order to raise tariffs from 25% to 50%, with the new rates taking effect at midnight. White House economic advisor Kevin Hassett explained that while the initial 25% tariff provided some support to the US steel industry, a higher rate was necessary to strengthen domestic production. The increase applies to all trading partners except the United Kingdom, which maintains a 25% tariff during a 90-day trade pause until at least July the 9th. About a quarter of US steel is imported, with Canada and Mexico as the top suppliers. Canada also leads US aluminium imports, making it the most affected by the new tariffs. Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney's office confirmed intensive negotiations are underway to remove these tariffs. This tariff move comes amid broader global trade tensions, including China's restrictions on rare earth minerals, which have raised concerns among automakers and industry analysts about supply chain distributions across automotive, aerospace, tech and defence sectors. In response, President Trump is also preparing to invoke the Defence Production Act to remove legal and funding barriers, aiming to boost US production of critical minerals and weapons to strengthen national security. Moving on now, and in a latest update, Iran's Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has said that US proposals for a nuclear agreement went against the country's national interests and the principles of the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Khamenei said Iran would not wait for approval from Washington or any other power to make decisions, stressing the importance of independence from foreign influence. Meanwhile, earlier Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian had echoed the same sentiment in a televised speech, declaring that Iran would not bow to US pressure to dismantle its nuclear program. Moving on, Lai Ching-te, the president of Taiwan, marked the 36th anniversary of the Tiananmen Square crackdown by honouring the courage of those who protested for democracy in 1989. He stressed that human rights are a universal value shared by democracies around the world, and not just a part of history to be remembered, but a principle to be upheld daily. Lai criticised authoritarian regimes for trying to erase history, saying that democratic societies choose to preserve the truth and honour those who sacrificed for freedom. He also reiterated Taiwan's commitment to these core values despite Beijing's opposition to his leadership. US Secretary of State Marco Rubio commemorated the bravery of the Chinese people who lost their lives during the crackdown and those who continue to seek justice for the events of June 4th, 1989. He pointed out that while the Chinese Communist Party seeks to censor and suppress the truth, the world will never forget the sacrifices made in the pursuit of fundamental freedoms. Heading back to North America now, Elon Musk is shaking up Washington, slamming President Trump's new tax and spending bill as a disgusting abomination. Musk took to social media to call out the bill's massive price tag and pork barrel spending, claiming it will deepen America's $36 trillion debt. The House passed the bill by just one vote last month. Now it heads to the Senate, controlled by Republicans, where deep divisions still remain. Fiscal conservatives are backing Musk's concerns, demanding changes to reduce deficits. Trump, however, is pushing for passage by July the 4th, calling it his one big beautiful bill. The bill extends Trump's 2017 tax cuts, boosts defense and border spending, and could add over $3.8 trillion to debt. Business tax breaks are also on the table, but senators may delay those to win support. Musk's comments test his political clout, coming just days after he left his role in Trump's government. The White House and Republican leaders insist they're moving forward, but the Senate math remains tight. Meanwhile, White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt dismissed Elon Musk's sharp criticism of Trump's massive spending bill, saying it doesn't change the president's stance. Leavitt reaffirmed Trump's commitment to the legislation, calling it a big, beautiful bill, despite Musk labelling it as a disgusting abomination. Staying in America, 2 Chinese nationals have been arrested in the United States for allegedly smuggling a dangerous agricultural pathogen into the country. 33-year-old Yang King Jian and 34-year-old Zhenyong Liu are now facing serious federal charges, including conspiracy, smuggling, visa fraud and making false statements. The FBI confirmed the arrests, with Director Kash Patel stating the pathogen in question is a biological threat. Authorities say the pair illegally brought in Fusarium graminearum, a fungus that causes head blight, a disease that devastates crops like wheat, rice and maize. Prosecutors warn that the smuggling of such a pathogen into a US research facility by foreign nationals is a grave threat to both national security and global food security. Staying in the US, and the family of an Egyptian national accused of attacking a pro-Israel rally in Colorado have been taken into federal custody. Officials say Mohammed Sabri Solomon, who allegedly threw lit Molotov cocktails at demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado, was in the country illegally, having overstayed a tourist visa and expired work permit. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem said the family's detention would allow for quick deportation, adding that investigators are looking into whether they had any knowledge or involvement in the attack. Solomon's family includes 2 teenagers and 3 younger children. Authorities say they've been cooperative so far. The attack, which injured a dozen people, many elderly, is believed to be an isolated act. Solomon claims he used gas bombs because his immigration status prevented him from purchasing firearms. Chinese President Xi Jinping met with Belarusian President Alexander Lukashenko in Beijing today, as both leaders vowed to deepen what they called their all-weather partnership. According to China's media, Xi congratulated Lukashenko on his recent re-election, which extended his rule to over 3 decades. In his remarks, Xi said China and Belarus are true friends and good partners, and expressed the commitment to promote the long-term development of bilateral ties and mutually beneficial cooperation. He also emphasised that both countries should jointly oppose what he called hegemony and bullying, while working to uphold international fairness and justice. Lukashenko's visit marks his first to the Chinese capital since securing victory in January's election, and comes amid efforts to expand strategic coordination between the 2 nations. Well, that's all we have time for, but we will continue to bring you more of the latest international news updates very shortly.